us out a little bit.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I noticed that we're recording this meeting. So I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Certainly, I will do a roll call to see which council members are present. We'll start with the chairperson, Brent Erickson.
Present.
Lynn Hamilton. I know I see Lynn there, but he's muted at this point. So Lynn, are you able to hear us, or?
Oops, I'm having a little IT difficulty here. Was that me you were asking about?
Yeah, just making sure you're present. It sounds like you are. So.
I am here.
All right. Good afternoon. All right. Mike Mathers.
Present.
All right. Good afternoon. Mark Ellery. I didn't hear anything from Mark. And then Hadley Connor. And I don't hear anything from Hadley. All right, Mr. Chairman, we do have 3 council members present out of the 5, which does give us a quorum, so we are able to proceed with our meeting.
Well, it appears that we have a quorum, so we're going to go ahead and proceed with the meeting. I'd like to approve the previous minute meetings as of March 8th. Do we have any discussion on that, or has everybody read those, or?
With it being a recording, I move that we go ahead and approve those minutes.
Okay, and do we have someone else to second that motion?
I can second it.
Do we have any discussion that anyone would like to have on this? No? Well, I think we should vote on this to approve the minutes.
All right, and I'm happy to call for a voice vote if you'd like.
Yes, I'd like a voice vote, please.
Okay, members of the council, we're voting to approve the meeting recording from March 8th, 2022, which was our last meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, any opposed say nay. Okay, and I did hear 3 ayes from the council members that are present, so it looks like the meeting minutes are approved.
Thank you, everyone. Let me pull up this agenda. It's pretty small. I guess I should have printed it out. Is there anyone on the public that needs to chime in here?
So I believe we'll wait for the call to public, which is item number 7 on our agenda. The next item, number 4, is discussion of our rulemaking.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm happy to proceed with that.
Okay.
All right, awesome. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for the moment. All right, and so for members of the Weights and Measures Advisory Council, prior to today's meeting, I provided you all with what at the time was the most recent draft of our rulemaking. We are conducting a rulemaking on all articles of Title III, Chapter 7, as it relates to the Department of Agriculture weights and measures. And the draft has been updated a little bit, but it's been editorial changes in consultation with our Assistant Attorney General, just making sure that everything lines up grammatically, so there's no substantive changes since I provided the copy. So what I'm going to do, for the sake of time, and since I had provided the draft of the rule ahead of time, I'm going to go through a summary of the changes and the purpose of the rulemaking today. And then, if there's any discussion from members of the council, we can proceed with that afterward. So I'll go through here and give a basic summary of the rulemaking that we're doing, or we're proposing to do. So the department is proposing to amend, again, Title III, Chapter 7, as it's related to the Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures Services Division. The main purpose of the rulemaking is to allow the sale of E15 motor fuel within the cleaner burning gasoline area. We are amending the rules to follow the course of action that we submitted in our 5-year review report at the end of last year to the Governor's Regulatory Review Council. We are streamlining rules to reduce reporting requirements and other regulatory burdens without changing our air quality or consumer benefits associated with our programs. And then we are updating requirements to remove Stage 2 vapor recovery provisions, since Stage 2 vapor recovery is now prohibited by statute in the non-attainment areas and has been decommissioned as of 2018. To go a little bit further into that, we've conducted an extensive review, from the start to the finish of our rules with interested stakeholders already. We've held 3 different stakeholder meetings, one on April 12th, one on April 14th of this year, and one on May 31st, to just talk about the technical nature of our rules and to make sure that, there's continuity and that the spirit of our programs is maintained in the rulemaking. But specific updates to the rules include the following. So one of the things that we've done is gone through and just taken a look at, is there anything that's no longer necessary as far as terminology goes? And so we've removed any defined terminology that is no longer used within the rules. We've streamlined our administrative enforcement action section to place an emphasis on the statutes, which basically guide our authority to issue enforcement action and civil penalties. We're incorporating requirements for cleaner burning gasoline into Area C, which is portions of Pinal County. Currently, cleaner burning gasoline is required to be used there in the summertime under statute, but it's not part of our state implementation plan with EPA at this point, and so we're incorporating those requirements that are provided in ARS 33494, that's the statute. We are incorporating the latest edition of our NIST handbooks. So we adopt 3 handbooks, Handbook 44, which is the technical specifications and requirements for commercial weighing and measuring devices. We also adopt Handbook 130 as it relates to method of sale requirements, and then Handbook 133, which is our packaging, net contents of packaged goods requirements. And so that would be updating to the 2022 editions of Handbook 44 and 130, and then the 2020 edition of Handbook 133, as that's the most recent one published through the National Conference on Weights and Measures. We've clarified a lot of our rules just to make sure that they're easier for people to understand. So that includes administrative hearing procedures, making a motion for rehearing or review, the process for licensing changes. We're including requirements that a registered service agency files documentation with the department when using field calibration standards or vapor recovery testing equipment belonging to another agency. Currently, that is allowed if we received written permission, but what we're doing is changing so that it has to be permission that's pre-filed with us. So you have to notify us ahead of time that, hey, I'm going to be using these standards belonging to another registered service agency. That way we can verify that they're certified through the metrology lab and things of that nature. We've reorganized our rules to place the rules in the appropriate articles. So some of the content that was in Article 1 has been distributed amongst Article 3 as it relates to package and labeling, Article 4, retail pricing, Article 5, weighmaster, 6, registered service agency and representative, and so on. So we're just putting things where the reader can more easily find them. We're updating our retail pricing inspection requirements for clarity, defining more clearly what an initial inspection is, what is a violation, and moving all of the exceptions for price posting, price verification violations to Article 4, where our retail pricing requirements are laid out. We've removed unnecessary requirements for commercial devices and third-party registered service agencies. We're updating all motor fuel specifications and test methods to the most recent version. Updating motor fuel signage and description requirements, mainly for clarity. We're not adding new requirements, just clarifying. We've put a lot of the fuel descriptions in a table, so everybody can see that and read it more easily. And then the biggest portion of it and the most technically challenging part of it that we've worked with stakeholders on is the incorporation of E15 into the cleaner burning gasoline area, which includes certification, oxygenate blending, independent survey procedures. So that's taken a lot of discussion, and we believe we've gotten to a point with stakeholders where that's pretty much sound and ready to go for our notice of proposed rulemaking. And a few more things here. Removal of Arizona-specific registration requirements for biofuel blenders, producers, and suppliers. We're relying on the EPA registration in those cases. Streamlining of certification and reporting requirements for cleaner burning gasoline suppliers. Just anything that we felt was a reporting requirement that really wouldn't impact air quality if it didn't exist, to try to make things easier for our registered suppliers. We went through and looked at that, and we've removed some reporting requirements there. And we've reorganized some of our CBG requirements, including survey requirements, for clarity. Let's see here. We've also removed the average in compliance option for CVG certification. That was one that nobody was really using, and it was a little bit complicated to understand. And so we just felt if nobody's using it, we might as well kind of retire that option. And then two more here. We've are proposing to incorporate the carb static torque test as part of the initial and annual vapor recovery test procedures. In addition to the tests we already require, which is the pressure vacuum valve, pressure decay, and the tie tank test. So this would just be one more test. And the idea is to test those rotatable swivel adapters just to ensure that they're not a leak point, that they're torqued to the proper specifications. So, and then last, just general, again, organizational editorial changes to improve the clarity and consistency of the rules. So that's the basic summary of it. I'm happy to pull up our draft document if there's anything that the council would like to discuss or you have questions about. I just didn't want to go through it all because it's rather lengthy, and if there's no real discussion on it, for a lot of our stakeholders who are attending this meeting, I didn't want to subject them to that again, but we can certainly do that if needed. So any questions from the council?
Nothing here.
No, the only comment I have is that the people out there in our state would like to use the Tucson fuel or the Flagstaff fuel in Maricopa County.
Yeah, I understand that, and we had worked with stakeholders in the past. We held several workshops to try to find alternative formulations to our existing cleaner burning gasoline, mainly in response to supply tightness challenges that we had had over time, but also there is an additional cost to the consumer on cleaner burning gasoline. And at that time, we had found one formulation as an option for the summertime, which was a conventional with a 7-pound vapor pressure. And there was a bill that went into the legislature to try and make that change because it would require a statute change to do that. And then COVID happened and the legislature adjourned early, and the bill we haven't had the same interest again at this point to reintroduce that to the legislature. So we are very well conscious of that, and we have made efforts, but it's challenging to find something that meets the same environmental benefits that our current cleaner burning gasoline formulations for winter and summer have. Any other questions or comments?
There was a question the other day that came up after the workshop, and I apologize, relative to signs, retail signs, monument signs posting prices for diesel and not on the monument sign necessarily identifying the presence of RD or bio in that material before somebody pulls up to the pump where they see the sticker. Was there a resolution on that issue?
Yes. So the discussion was, on the roadside or other signs, as we're calling them now, which could include billboards, monument signs, if we would allow basically a biodiesel blend to just be represented as diesel, because we had received information that other states do allow that in the eastern part of the country. And so after consultation with some of our stakeholders and our fellow weights and measures agencies across the country that regulate motor fuel quality, we made the determination not to allow that. It would need to be specifically identified not to allow that in our proposed rule. Keep in mind, this is still a draft proposed rule, and our intent is to file a notice of proposed rulemaking. But what we had received feedback, from mainly other states is that they're considered two different products, and therefore, the consumer needs to be aware what product is being advertised on that sign and what price is being posted for that product. And so that's the reason that we decided not to make any changes in response to that discussion.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think the concern that I heard, if I understood it correctly, was that changing descriptions on those signs is expensive, time-consuming, potentially involves heavy equipment, van lists, whatever. And then with regard to what's happening at the pump, a lot of the travel centers, et cetera, are doing blended to pump, or bio may be available at some points from a supply standpoint, and other times not. And so the blends are changing fairly dynamically. And does that place an undue burden on the retail location if they're already covering that scenario with stickers on the pump? So I just want to make sure we're all aware, and probably everybody is, but I just want to put it out there. I guess there's an equivalency there with ethanol.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. We did have a good amount of discussion, and we went back and forth on it for a little bit. But after, consulting with our peers and just thinking about the different products out there on the market and making sure that the consumer has the information that they need to make a wise decision about their purchase, that's the decision that we've made. Now, of course, once we go into the notice of proposed rulemaking, we will have a public comment period, and so interested parties are more than welcome to submit comments related to that, and we will be required to respond to that. But that's how we've decided to proceed at this point.
Okay.
When is this anticipated being put out for public comment and then being implemented?
Well, that is a great question. So our plan here, so we have presented our rule package, our draft rule, to the Weights and Measures Advisory Council. Tomorrow afternoon at the same time, we are presenting it to the Agriculture Advisory Council. And, you know, as long as there are no significant discussion about it, about our rules, then our plan is to file the notice of proposed rulemaking by July 15th at the latest. At this point, it's looking like we're going to be able to do it sooner than that. And then the public comment period would begin soon after that. The goal is to complete this rulemaking by the end of the calendar year, so December 31st. We do have all of our documents pretty much in line to a point where they can be submitted to the Secretary of State's office. So that's the plan at this point going forward. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I was on mute again. Will we as council members be given a copy of that when it's submitted, or would we just have to go through that, the process of seeing it had been posted?
So the Secretary of State will publish it in their register. However, I'm more than happy to distribute the information to our council members.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so just, and like I said, so our next step is to run it through our two councils that that we have within agriculture for weights and measures, and then we file the notice of docket opening, the notice of proposed rulemaking with the Secretary of State. We'll field public comments for at least 30 days, beginning on the date that the notice is published. And then at the end of the 30-day public comment period, we will hold an oral proceeding, likely at our new office, that closes the rulemaking record. And so that's kind of where the public comment process is. Based on the feedback, we may make technical corrections and non-substantial amendments. Then we submit that to our policy advisor at the governor's office. They have to review it and approve any amendments, corrections to the proposed rules other than, you know, what was already filed with the Secretary of State. And then within 120 days of the close of record, we submit our economic impact statement, our proposed rules, our approvals from the governor's office, which we had to get initially to do the rulemaking, and then we have to get the second one after we respond to any comments. And then there's a public comment period. It goes through the Governor's Regulatory Review Council, and then they'll make a vote on whether or not to approve our rule package. And if it's approved, then we file a notice of final rulemaking, and then it will be published in the Administrative Register and become our new rules. So that's the basic process.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of steps in our rulemaking process, which is, it creates some challenges for us, but overall it's good because the rule has plenty of time to be reviewed by, you know, the public, by stakeholders, by ourselves, you know, and it makes sure that everybody's involved in the rulemaking process. So it's a little bit unique in Arizona that we have so many steps, but you know, overall, I believe it's a good thing and it's a benefit to the people of Arizona. So that's where we're at. And if there are no other questions, then the council can make the determination on whether to basically support us going forward, approve our intent to file the notice of proposed rulemaking, go through the rest of the rulemaking process, or not, or if there's any other comments for discussion, then we can take care of that right now. So,
does anybody else have any comments or discussions? I propose that we move forward with this rulemaking process that you've just described. Seems like it's going to take a long time, and there's an election coming up, so that might alter that a bit. But I think we should move forward on it.
And I will second that motion if it needs to be done.
Do we need to vote on that, Kevin, or?
Yeah, a formal vote would be good.
Would you like to call that vote?
Certainly. So, members of the Weights and Measures Advisory Council, there's a motion to approve our intent to proceed with the notice of proposed rulemaking, the rulemaking package that was presented before you. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and anybody opposed, please say nay. Okay, then I did hear 3 ayes or see 3 ayes on the board from our council members present. So, Mr. Chairman, I believe the motion passes.
Great, that sounds good. We're excited about it. Well, are we going to move on to, Kevin, do you move on to the next risk management approach, or we have some other discussion there?
Yeah, so the risk-based inspection approach, that's our next agenda item. And there's not much to report at this point because we've hit a bit of a roadblock, and I'll explain where that is, and I'll actually show that a little bit to you. So we've done a significant amount of work gathering data, analyzing data for our risk-based inspection approach. And I presented some of this to you last time, but basically, as a reminder of the process that we've gone through so far, June of last year, I believe it was, this council, we went through and we identified risk factors that can be used in our risk-based inspection approach. Then we went and prioritized the importance of those risk factors. After we did that, we did the same thing with our weights and measures staff. We split them up into 3 groups, had them prioritize the risk factors, and then we averaged our score out and compared that, basically combined those 2 together, factored them into this analysis with the advisory council scores. Then after that, we started figuring out, okay, so this is the prioritization of the risk factors. How does that apply to each of our inspection types? And if I go back here to the risk factor relevance. So this is an example, this is an example of how we did that. So we took the risk factors and then we scored them internally in weights and measures based on as much data as we could have from our system, our compliance tracking unit, on how relevant is that risk factor to this particular inspection category. So if you have an inspection category with a low compliance rate overall, then it's going to score higher on the risk factor relevance than one that has a good compliance rate or a high compliance rate. And so then once that happens, it gets plugged into this formula here. And so it takes the relevance score, multiplies it by the priority, the weighted multiplier of that risk factor, and it spits out a number. And the higher the number, the higher risk, essentially, that category is. And when we averaged that all out between the different groups that were surveyed, we get numbers that look like this here in this color scale. So if it's red, it's higher risk. If it's green, it's lower risk. Then we had to figure out how many locations do we have, how many work hours do we have to complete this, how long does it take to do an inspection, so we can compare that with the work hours and figure out how many inspections that we can do, how many complaint inspections and re-inspections do we do on average, so that we can separate those out from the risk-based approach, because those are things that are going to happen anyway based on consumer complaints that we receive, re-inspections that need to be done due to non-compliance, and so on. And we put all that data together and it spit out a result. And it said, okay, based on all of that information, this is the number of inspections you have to do in these different categories. And so for retail pricing, 1,242, motor fuel dispensers 427, and it just goes down the line. And this is in over the course of a year, not counting re-inspections and complaints. And so then we have to look at, okay, we have so many work hours available for our staff. This is how often they're doing inspections, how many hours we have each year. And this is the number of staff that we have, so we can multiply that. And we have to figure out, okay, how do we fit these inspections into the work hours that we have? And the capabilities that our staff have, because not every staff member is trained to do every type of inspection. That's where we've hit our roadblock, because we do have information here showing that, okay, for each inspector in each category, this is the number of inspections that you need to complete in order to meet our goal. And you can see at the bottom, we had 427 motor fuel dispenser inspections in a year. Right here, it lines up with what the risk-based approach is telling us to do, same here, 395 and so on. And so this was divided up a number of different ways. If there's locations that have devices, then we take that inspector's district and we determine, well, what percentage of locations do they have in their district? So we give them an equal proportion for the types of inspections compared to somebody that might have more or less. And then for certain types of inspections where there aren't really specific types of devices related, or there's only certain people that can do it, like with our large capacity scales, because they need a commercial driver's license, we're just going to divide it evenly amongst those staff members. So retail, price, posting, and verification, you can see everybody has the same number of inspections that they need to complete. The problem is, at the end of it all, you have some people that have a heavier workload than others, and that's the challenge that we have to figure out how to overcome. Because ideally, if everybody was trained on every type of inspection, then we could even this out, and it would probably be much easier to implement this risk-based approach. But because we don't have, a majority of our staff aren't trained to do packaging inspections, which is testing the contents of packaged goods. You can see here, it puts a lot of inspections on, only a handful of our inspectors. And so this is identified for us, I think, what is the next path to go forward with. And it ties in with some of our strategic plan that we're working on within agriculture as a whole, where it's going on development of standard of work and staff coaching and development. So getting people trained to have the best value to our organization, to the taxpayers, to the members of Arizona, and also preparing them for opportunities for advancement in the future, whether it's with weights and measures agriculture or another position within the state. And so we've identified that what we need to do is focus on training additional staff members for those inspection types that we only have a handful of people available to complete, to try to even out the workload, and B, refocusing on our training and development program, making sure that our training is documented, that our standards of work are, in a format that's easy to understand, they're updated. And so that is really what looks like is going to be our focus over the next year with regard to our strategic plan. Our metrics that we're going to track is really getting our staff trained so that we are well prepared to implement this inspection plan. Because we started looking at it going, well, there's a lot of package inspections here. I mean, there's 1,179. That's more than we've ever done in a year. But it kind of made us nervous. We're like, well, we don't have the staff to do that right now. So we need to figure out how to change that number. And well, that wasn't the answer. After we talked with our in-house strategic planner, we talked internally on our management team. It was like, no, this is what the data is telling us to do. So we need to figure out the steps to implement it. And so that's where we're at with the risk-based approach. So I don't see this being implemented at the start of our new fiscal year as originally planned. But what we are doing is focusing on getting our staff trained so that we can, maybe halfway through the fiscal year or at the start of the following fiscal year, really focus on this new risk-based approach. The other thing that we need to do is we've had some new staff hired on, and we've had, inspections happen over time, and so the compliance rates may have changed, which might influence the risk factors. And so we just need to update and refresh the data to see if anything changes as far as the output, the inspections that we need to do. So I know that's a lot, but that's where we're at right now with the risk-based approach. Are there any questions?
I just have a comment. It seems like the risk-based approach is the right approach, but would you be able to implement some of them, or like a series of those versus so you got 16 techs there or 15? How could we spread that out to maybe start doing it? Seems, because I think what you developed in the data shows that we need to be doing it sooner than later.
I agree, and I think one of the things that we can start off with that we would need to do anyway is there are certain inspection categories that historically we haven't placed a huge emphasis on, just because we felt we were doing pretty much a risk-based inspection approach by inspecting the places that the consumers go the most, the fuel stations, the grocery and retail stores. And there are some categories where we don't have a lot of inspections under our belt over the past several years. And because of that, I'm not confident in the compliance rate that our system has documented. I think we need to go out and do some inspections, do a sample of each of those categories to generate a realistic compliance rate, plug it into our risk-based approach, and then see where that leaves us. So I think that's one thing we can definitely start on this fiscal year in kind of implementing this risk-based approach is, okay, let's look at these categories that have historically been what we call underserved, mainly because we've never had the resources to carry out everything. And let's get a realistic compliance rate and see where that leaves us, because you may have something that says, oh yeah, this compliance rate in this category is great. You really don't need to pay too much attention to it. That gives us resources that can go elsewhere. Or it might say, the compliance rate in this category isn't great. We need to implement, an industry education program. We need to, focus on doing more inspections in that category to assess and respond to that risk that we've identified. And so I think that's how we're going to proceed going forward. But we can definitely see, as we get those categories kind of assessed and those compliance rates established, what we can add in with the resources that we do have, and try to implement as much of this approach as we can. I do think that's a great suggestion, and we can definitely look to do that. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, that's the latest on our risk-based approach. And of course, as the Auditor General comes back in a follow-up from their initial report, we will update them with the status of where we're at on the risk-based approach and that it's still planned for implementation. We just have to do a little bit more work on our end before we get to that point. So it's really good because, like I said, it ties in with the standard of work development, our staff training, coaching, documentation, and development. That's part of our department-wide strategic plan that we're proposing to do. So it'll really work well with that in kind of going back to the drawing board on some things and getting staff trained so that they're more diverse in their capabilities. All right, and I think the next agenda item is mine. So if there's nothing else about risk-based, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to move on.
Let's move on to the weights and measures updates.
All right. Yeah, I do have some updates here. I'm just pulling up some visual items here to show you. Here we go. So the most significant update, really since we last met, of course, is our rulemaking, and we've talked about that earlier in the meeting. But our other significant update is that the Department of Agriculture has moved. So we are no longer at 1688 West Adams Street, formerly known as the Agriculture Building. And it's a bit of a sentimental, building to a lot of people, because that's where agriculture has been since the agency was established in the early 90s. And Governor Ducey has made an effort to try to reduce our office footprint. During COVID, where a lot of staff were working remotely, our leadership at the governor's office found that, hey, that actually works pretty well. A lot of staff can work remotely, and maybe we don't need as much office space as we have currently. And so state agencies have been consolidated into fewer buildings, given a smaller footprint, with the understanding that people will be working remotely going forward. And there are other options, as flexibility as far as where your workspace is located. So I'm going to pull up the map here and just give you a little bit of a tour of where we were and where we are now. Oh. There we are. Okay, so bird's eye view, we're flying over the Capitol Mall area. And of course, north is at the top of the screen here, but the state capitol is just down over here. This building with the red terracotta border on the roof here, this is our old agriculture building. Currently, our licensing staff are still at that location until their new space is built out at our new office. But if you head to the east down Adams Street, which turns into Washington, and we go a few blocks to the east, we get to 11th and 12th Avenue here. And this building is now known as the Natural Resources Building. And so we're looking at the one that's kind of this right angle shape here. This is the Natural Resources Building. So it now houses the Department of Agriculture, Department of Water Resources, Department of Environmental Quality, Forestry and Fire Management, and Land Department, and so on. There's a lot of natural resource agencies, and they're all under one roof. Agriculture occupies the fourth floor on the kind of eastern half of the building. So we have half of this entire floor, and as I remember correctly, it's about 22,000 square feet or so. Weights and Measures was assigned to hold 201 square feet in this building. So we have actually it's a very nice office with two what we call hoteling workstations. So our staff, our office staff, we all have laptops. There's a docking station in our office at these hoteling stations with monitors. We bring our laptop into the office, plug into it. We can see on 3 different screens for our computers. 2 staff can work in there at a time. And it has, our file cabinets and things that we need. But it's a very nice space for us, functional space. And since our team has been working remotely and been doing it successfully, that's one of the reasons why we were allotted such a small space. So we have our 201 square foot office, and then there are meeting spaces and shared spaces, of course, on the 4th floor, along with all of the other divisions that are in agriculture. So when you walk into this building, before people could walk into the lobby, and right there was our receptionist for agriculture. Now there's a security desk as you walk in. You would have to go up to the elevators to the 4th floor, where there's another secured entrance. Our receptionist would have to buzz you in, and then there's more security to get through to the office space or meeting areas in most cases. So for our staff that are working in the office regularly, security was a concern at our old building, and this building's definitely an upgrade to that. It has better amenities for staff. Covered parking's nice, but there are more options for you know, like if you rode your bike to work, the parking garage actually has showers in there where you can clean up and get into your work clothes before you go into the office. It's a really neat workspace. And it used to mainly house in this building the Department of Environmental Quality. So if you've ever been to their office before, that's where we are now. And we're occupying space that actually was formerly the Department of Gaming, and they moved down the street to 15th Avenue in Washington. The other big thing, like I said, our licensing staff are still at our old building. In the bottom of the parking garage here at this address, 1010, there used to be a cafe there that was open to the public. And that space is now being built out for our licensing staff. And that will be where, if you're a registered service representative applicant or a public waymaster applicant, if you need to go take a certification exam, do anything related to licensing, make a payment in person, you would actually go to that facility there, and it will be a secured facility, but there will be somebody that can grant you access to go in. And then the kitchen area actually in the back it's being converted into laboratory space for some of the other agriculture divisions. So it's kind of a neat process because you're taking this existing space that the cafe has been sitting empty for a while now, and they're repurposing it into something that's useful for, you know, state agencies, and we're all combined under one roof. You know, I know it's saving money at state government, and, you know, it's more efficient to have people just in the one space. And so I really think it's going to work out well. I've heard positive feedback from a lot of our colleagues in agriculture about the new office space. Yeah, it was a lot of work to move over there for some agencies, but I think people are realizing now that, hey, this is really a great space for us to be in. And we're going to be in there for the foreseeable future. You know, it was a big move. So anyway, so that is one of the biggest updates, just a little, you know, information about where we've moved to. For visitors, there is visitor parking on the first floor of this garage. You would enter off of Washington Street, or you can park in any of these surface lots, starting at the northwest corner, of 12th Avenue and Adams and going down. We're next door now to the Corporation Commission. I think the Industrial Commission is on the other side. So we're right in line with other state agencies there on Washington Street. Any questions about the move? All right. The other thing I wanted to discuss, another big update is, you know, we have another new staff member that we hired. His name is Faisal Zaidi, and he is based in the East Valley area. And so he's filling in a vacancy. We had promoted one of our inspectors to a compliance officer, which is a field supervisor. And our compliance officers going forward are not going to have inspection districts. Their main focus is going to be on staff training, development, and they'll serve as a floater to help with complaint inspections, urgent inspections, team inspections, things of that nature. And so this position, Faisal's position, is filling in a vacancy over in the East Valley area. And I wanted to show you what our staff districts look like. I don't know if I've ever showed you this before, but to give you an idea, when we're talking about risk-based inspections, how many resources we have, each one of these colors here, all these pins that are different colors, each color represents a different inspector that we have. And so you can see with the geography of our state, all of these little pins are zip codes, because that's what our database currently operates by, is zip codes. That's what defines what district you're in. So all of these different colors are districts. And you can see that it's a big geographic area. Currently, we have somebody that's basically inspecting half of the state in the northern Arizona area, Dan. We have a vacancy up north, and so that person basically inspects everything between Nevada and New Mexico, Utah, and about Camp Verde or so, and all the way over into the White Mountain area. So this is a challenge for us, just because of the geography, the travel time that's required. Even if you're in a smaller district, Like our Yuma inspector still has to go up to Parker and out to Dateland. We have Tucson inspectors that go all the way over to Duncan, Alpine, that area. And so this is one of the things that creates a challenge for us when trying to implement inspection plans is, well, you have that travel time. That's a big part of, the time that we spend every week just trying to do our inspections. And so we do have another position open right now. Currently, it's posted actually in Holbrook, Arizona. And the reason we've selected Holbrook is because we have an inspector whose duty post is further out west, kind of near the Ash Fork area. And so we wanted to be able to cover this kind of eastern Arizona area where it takes a long time for people to travel up there. And so currently we have some applicants. We haven't been getting in as many applicants as we used to in the past, but I don't know that anybody has anymore with trying to hire people. And so we're doing the best we can with it, but this is what our staff district breakdown looks like overall. And so Fassel has joined on with our team. He's currently training right now on fueling related inspections. And then we're hoping to hire a second person as soon as we find the right applicant. So that's where we're at kind of on our staff resources. Any questions about our staffing?
No, it's big.
Yeah, Arizona, it's challenging, just the geography of it. Some of our inspectors, where they're located, it's sometimes 2 hours from anywhere to do an inspection. And that's just the nature of it because, there's rural areas of our state, the regulated locations are spread out. And, we can't have somebody just focused in a small area. We only have really 14 inspectors out there plus our 2 supervisors to cover the entire state. And so it can be challenging, but we do the best we can with it. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of what else. The only other things, we did receive our LPG prover trailer. So we purchased a trailer from Seraphin that has a 25 and 100 gallon LPG prover on the back of it. So we just got the trailer registered and titled, so we can move it out on the roads now, and we're going to start learning how to use it and put it out there in the field to start doing propane inspections. We've also are finishing up the remodeling work on our current propane truck to install a new 25 gallon prover on there and some other equipment to make things a little bit easier for our staff. So that'll help us in the field to help complete those inspections. And we finished our last master meter event for propane. So that happened near the end of May. Previously, for registered service agencies, rather than using a certified standard like a prover, we allow the use of what was called a master meter. And it's basically a meter just like you'd have for propane sales that's calibrated, and you use that meter to calibrate the other meters and so on and so forth. But it's not a certification method that's recognized by NIST. And we have found some issues in the field with likely related to master meter on the accuracy of propane meters. And so other states, the prover is really the way to go as far as the certification for propane meters. And so that's what we're moving to January 1st, 2023. So we had our last master meter event. That was the last opportunity for us to accept a certification on master meters, and going forward, propane meters in the marketplace will need to be certified using a prover. There is talk of, at NIST, there's talk of trying to approve what's called a Coriolis flow meter for propane, and we're going to participate in that program to evaluate and gather data on those meters, which is much less expensive than a prover. But right now we haven't heard from NIST on that. It's been a little while since we had a meeting about that program. So once it comes up, we'll assist in gathering data to hopefully find something that's more cost effective for our registered service agencies out there. And I think the only other thing is the National Conference on Weights and Measures annual meeting is coming up in July. It's in Tacoma, Washington, and we will be sending 2 representatives to NCWM. So that'll be our compliance managers, Vince Wolpert and Mike Brooks. So they will be going to NCWM and representing Arizona in the development of, the standards that apply to weights and measures. And so we're looking forward to have them participate in that. And, they have a meeting twice a year, their annual meeting, and then the interim meetings happen in January. And we try to send representatives to all of those meetings and our Western Weights and Measures Association meetings whenever we can. So we're looking forward to that. And I think that's all that I have for the Weights and Measures update.
Wow, you moved right through that today.
Yeah, it was a little bit more brief. So anyway, and that moves us on to the next item on our agenda, which I'll bring it back up the screen, is the call to the public here. So.
The next item is call to the public. At this time, is there anyone out there that would like to comment on the things that we've talked about today? Well, they're making it easy on you, Kevin.
Fine with me.
And so I don't think there's anybody that wants to publicly speak, item number 7. And I don't believe that we have an executive session today, do we?
That would be correct. I don't believe there's a reason to go into executive session unless the council decides to discuss any matter on the agenda, but I don't believe there's a need to.
No, I don't think so either. Well, that would leave us with the last item, number 9, the next meeting to be determined. We were out a little over 3 months this last time, so we could probably work on setting the date or a series of dates that might work for all of us.
Yeah, we've in the past been trying to do quarterly meetings, which would put us in September, and I would like to try, if possible, to hold a meeting in person at our new office. And so I'm happy to coordinate that. But if there's a particular date in December week that our council members can or cannot participate, or we can try to sort that out later on and just aim for September, we can certainly do that. It's whatever the council prefers.
Yeah, I definitely want to meet in person, number 1. Because this is real hard. I actually had to get all this equipment, and not just for this, but for somebody else. So, number 1. Number 2, I think if we could put out a couple dates or 2 or 3 dates and times like you usually do in September, that kind of gives everybody, we can get a consensus of what date and what time works.
Okay. Yeah, I can do what I normally do and just kind of send out some suggested dates, and the council members can respond. And we'll see where we're at in the rulemaking process. That may influence kind of what weeks work better for weights and measures in September. But certainly I'll be happy to do that. And we'll plan to hold our next meeting around September at our new office. And the address for our new office, for those who don't know, it's 1110, so 1110 West Washington Street in Phoenix, and the zip code is 85007. One of the decisions that the Department of Agriculture made this time around, that's an option to any state agency, is to have a different mailing address. We'll see how complicated it makes things, but basically the Department of Administration has a mail room, and they have post office boxes similar to the post office, U.S. Postal Service. And so they have a mail room down on Jackson Street, south of the Capitol. And so we have agriculture, that's the mailing address. It's 1802 West Jackson Street, box number 78, and the same zip code, 85007. So going forward, for those of you who get inspected by agriculture, or if you're sending an application via mail, it would need to go to our mailing address, and then the Department of Administration every day goes around and picks up outgoing mail, drops off incoming mail from their mail room. So that's another change, and that information will be on all of our official documents going forward. Our letterhead is going to be updated, and our website has that information currently. So just a heads up to everybody out there.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that information. Does anyone have anything else to say today that's pertinent?
Nope, that's good.
Okay. Would someone like to give us a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
And I second that motion.
Okay. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Are we good, Kevin?
It sounds like the council voted to adjourn, so yes, we're all set. I will stop recording, and I appreciate everybody's time today. And if you have any questions, just please send me an email, kallen@azda.gov. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kevin. We appreciate
Thank
your help.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Oh.